So, last weekend, I dropped off my entries for this year's Sydney Royal Easter Show knitting competition. I also build websites and apps for a living. Now, some people think that's really weird, like I'm being an ironic hipster. But really, it makes perfect sense to me. Knitting is just code. Anybody who's ever tried to knit knows that there's only two stitches, knit and purl, combined in lots of different ways. So knitting is inherently binary. And we computer people know that means we can use it to encode messages in lots of really cool ways. For example, I can combine knits and purls to make ribbing in a beanie and spell out a message. This hat encodes up to 12 ASCII characters at 8 bits per character. So the size of your message is limited only by the size of your head. If you wanted to do something longer, you could knit a scarf. So the scarf here actually has the source code to Ravelry.com, which is a really cool knitting website. You should check it out. It's knitted using knits for the ones and purls for the zeros. So you could do pretty much anything this way. If you're more of a black hat type, you could even knit a virus. For the viral knitting project, some activists knitted the source code to the Code Red computer virus into a scarf. So you could wrap that around your neck, walk right across a border. So much for firewalls. So these are all examples of steganography. Steganography, for those who don't know, is the art of hiding a message in plain view. You know, nowadays the news freaks out about, terrorists from ISIS hiding messages in photos on eBay. This is not a new thing. Back in World War II, the Belgian resistance actually recruited little old ladies who lived near train yards to keep an eye on the trains and to knit their movements into their garments. She doesn't look so innocent anymore, does she? She could be putting anything in that jumper. But binary knits and purls are just one way that you can encode messages in knitting. Another way that I really like is cables. So for example, this hat has the numbers from 0 to 15 in binary notation, depending on where the cable crosses occur. The scarf on the right uses cables that actually look like little ones and zeros. Very cute. Maybe you're not into texture, maybe you're more into color. Well, you could use the width of knitted stripes to represent a character set. The stripes on this guy's jumper actually spell out the classic first programming exercise, hello world. Somebody said it, yeah. If you want to be a little less subtle, you could knit literal zeros and ones into your scarf matrix style. I am happy to tell you that the average scarf will hold about 120 bytes of information, which we all know is just shy of a tweet. Not that the Belgian nanas were knitting tweets, but they may have actually been knitting Morse code. So these mittens use 2 colors of wool to represent the dots and dashes of Morse code. So the left mitten spells out my left mitten, the right one, my right mitten, thumb, very meta. Another way that you can create a repeating, a secret message is to create a repeating graphical motif out of it. So in this example, the word peace, the characters have been converted to base 6, plotted on a graph, mirrored and tweaked to make a pattern that you could repeat over and over again. Very pretty. But Kris, you're thinking, what about accessibility? Well, what's more accessible than Braille? These socks use the texture of knitted stitches to encode in Braille a stanza from Dr. Seuss's Oh, the Places You'll Go. So I think all this stuff's really cool, but I know some of you saw the title of my talk and you're thinking, hacker. I was expecting something a little bit more high-tech and futuristic, disruptive even, preferably involving an app of some kind, right? Okay, I've got that covered too. What about a real, working, knitted QR code? Oh, I did it. These mittens right here got me a 2nd place in the show a few years back. They really work, and they point to a URL on my site that has the pattern for the mittens, so they're self-replicating. They're not very subtle, though. This is a more subtle one. I knitted this for my husband. It's a technique called illusion knitting. From the front, just stripes. From the right angle, he's secretly an Autobot from the planet Cybertron. More than meets the eye. Another one really subtle. Not so much computer code. This is scientific output. This girl's scarf is actually the graphical representation of the emission spectrum of the element molybdenum. Very geeky. And the geekiest of all, the Arachino message was a message that was broadcast into space to a light cluster 24,000 light years away in 1974. Helpful map of our solar system included. Here it is represented in filet crochet. I, for one, welcome our new crochet overlords. So, after all this, you might be thinking, I don't really feel like knitting computer code. How about sewing a circuit? You can actually order a lily pad Arduino now with conductive thread that you can sew into your garments to turn them into E-textiles. Told you, disruptive. Yeah. So that's me. I hope this has been inspiring. For those of us who push pixels around all day long, knitting is just a really creative and tactile way to relax. If you want to learn how, come see me in the break or call your grandma.